It's 15 months since the UK voted to leave the European Union in the historic Brexit vote, and we are moving inexorably, whether we like it or not, towards a Brexit. Today I'm in Rutland to meet farmers Monty and Andrew Brown to discuss their view on Brexit, their hopes and fears, and we've got a Brexit barometer quiz to start off with. So here are the rules: 10 topics, 10 seconds each. After 10 seconds I'll buzz you out, and then the next person gets a go himself, and you can follow up or you can have your own say. So, are we ready, fellas? So we're going to start with Andrew first. So the first topic is farm subsidies. Andrew.
Farm subsidies. Well, UK agriculture relies utterly on farm subsidies, and if they diminish significantly, I think we're going to see between 20 and 30,000 less farmers in this country in the next 5 to 10 years.
Monty?
Well, I actually think that the subsidies will continue because of the very essence of the need of food. And I can tell you, since we left Brexit, our corn has gone up 12 or 14%. Your payment this year is going up 10%. So therefore, I think at the moment we're moving in the right direction. So if we get a proper...
So that's
next
the
subject.
use of the pound.
Doesn't matter.
Next subject: trade or prospect of a free trade deal.
Free trade deal with other countries could be potentially disastrous for UK farmers. We've had the free movement of goods, services and people with Europe. You can't get a better trade deal than that. So I think we're in for a bit of a rough time.
Free trade.
Well, I think free trade will open up the world to Great Britain, which it needs for all sorts of exports, motor cars and various other produce from the country.
Next subject is cheap food or cheap food imports.
Cheap food. Every government wants cheap food because it keeps inflation low. Food historically has never ever been cheaper. People need to value their food more and treat it as a valuable commodity rather than just a throwaway.
I think the onus lies squarely on the supermarkets, who tend to mark up the food and need extra amount. Whereas you buy a bag of potatoes, a kilo of potatoes for £1, you're actually paying £1,000 a tonne. Potatoes have never made £1,000 a tonne on the farm.
Next subject, this links in nicely: tariffs.
Tariffs, if they bring tariffs in, then there's one person that will pay the tariffs, and that will be the primary producer, namely the farmer. So if you're looking at 20 to 30 pounds a tonne on wheat, the current prices, you're looking at less than 100 pounds a tonne for your wheat. Cost of production at 130, it's not viable.
Well, I think the thing is with the tariffs is it opens up the world to us, and we can put on the tariffs what we require and what we want, as the Japanese put on a 50% tariff on our whiskey. And also that we can get rid of this business about sending crops to various countries, which is deemed by the French and the Germans. We can get rid of that situation.
Oh, double the buzz on that one. Next one, animal welfare and the environmental standards.
Well, we've got the highest animal welfare and environmental standards of almost anywhere in the world, and I don't want to see those being diminished by the government importing food that's produced at lower animal welfare standards and environmental standards, because all you're doing there is exporting the problem to other countries, which is completely ludicrous when we've done all this good work in this country for the environment and animal welfare. And we could see it just being exported.
Well, again.
I think one of the problems with the animal welfare is the zealousness of trying to educate vets for 7 years. If you go to Spain, the vets are educated in 12 months, look after bovine animals. And when we had the foot and mouth, we were trawling cattle all over the country because we hadn't got sufficient vets, because they're educated in rodents and cats and dogs and not in the thing which...
Next one. DEFRA.
DEFRA, it's a bit of a sort of I don't know the right word, you have to edit that bit out. DEFRA is a big problem for the government. I mean, we've got the simplest system we could possibly have currently, but with an area-based payment, and they can't get that right. So if they're going to build and design some new way of paying farmers their support payments, I have no confidence in them whatsoever.
DEFRA,
I think one of the problems with DEFRA is that they market it towards land agents and people who are in the land market with regard to testing out their surveys, testing out their payments, trying out these different ways with IT, which doesn't help the farmers who live in areas where they can't get an IT contact.
Next one, the bane of every farmer's life: red tape.
Red tape. I don't think red tape ever diminishes. I mean, every government says we're going to have better regulation, less red tape, and what do you end up with? Worse regulation and more red tape. I have no confidence that we're going to have any less red tape whatsoever.
Red tape.
I agree, and I think the thing with the red tape is it doesn't really. The problem with the red tape is someone else making it for us. If we make our own red tape, then we can actually appeal against whatever. But in this situation, we've got other unelected people making red tape, not only for farming but other things.
Good, okay, self-sufficiency in food and drink.
We're down to less than 60% self-sufficiency currently. We need to get that figure going back towards 70-80%. I mean, it's quite sad to think that we cannot feed ourselves with the stuff we grow ourselves, like the great cattle, sheep.
Well, self-sufficiency.
Self-sufficiency. Well, we've got a considerable amount of land in the country doing nothing. We could utilise that land to produce more food and get our requirements up. The land that's now on set aside or greening, what have you, is all very well in some respects, but it doesn't help with feeding the generation. After all, you can't have a blackbird for your Christmas dinner.
Access to labour.
Free movement of people has been a great asset to farming with the horticultural industry. I mean, I think there's no problem with immigration, it's integration that's the problem. We're going to see food rotting in the fields if we're not careful, because you cannot get people from the UK to do the hard work that the Eastern Europeans are prepared to do for the prices that farmers will pay.
I think immigration is a really sad factor in so much it's integration which has gone wrong, and the fact is that I think that if we were to have a properly monitored food workforce that were able to come into the country, as we do with the Australians who clip the sheep and what have you, then we could somehow monitor who was coming, because we need them and we cannot have them, so therefore the government's got to get its head around putting a proper situation in place.
And finally, last but not least, the vision of the future of UK agriculture.
Well, we've got an opportunity to sort agriculture out in a way that's almost unique, but I have no confidence that we've got the people at the top who have the ability to do that. I mean, our leaders do not inspire me that they know A, what they're doing, and B, where they're going. Looking at what's happened so far, we've got a clown as the Foreign Secretary and a witch as the Prime Minister.
We'll move on swiftly here.
Yeah, with regard to the future of farming, I think we've got to re-encourage the family farm, so farmers and villages can be maintained with a reasonable workforce, a reasonable utilisation of machinery, and not have these large foraging type farms that when it comes to spraying time they throw everything at every field exactly the same, because they can't afford a failure and they can't afford to get it wrong. And where individual farms, smaller farms, which we could encourage, will be a lot more pragmatic with regard to the techniques they use.
So there we have it. So 10 seconds, there we have it, 10 questions, 10 seconds, that's done.
And what do you think to that?
I'll call it a score draw, okay. Cheers, fellas.
Right, thank you very
Enjoy
much.
the tea.